Have you ever imagined how a single night could completely change the dynamic between two people from such different worlds? A divorced businessman, used to calling the shots and controlling everything around him, suddenly decides to take his housemaid to an important business dinner. Sounds unlikely, almost absurd, doesn't it? After all, what place would she have at a table full of magnates and investors? But what no one expected was that this night would unveil such an impressive twist that it would leave everyone speechless, including the businessman himself. This story goes far beyond appearances. It's about how we often underestimate those we consider simple and how the most valuable lessons can come from the least expected places. Get ready for a narrative full of surprises, where you'll see how an ordinary woman with determination and intelligence can defy the status quo and earn respect in an environment where she was never supposed to belong. And the most fascinating part, the transformation this will bring won't just be for her, but for the man who thought he had it all under control. Why did he choose her? What happened that night that no one could predict? And above all, what can this story teach us about life, human relationships, and the power of surpassing expectations? Stay with us, because what you're about to discover goes far beyond a dinner. It's a lesson in transformation that might just change the way you see the world around you. Dr. Gabriel Torres was a man who exuded respect and determination. Recognized as one of the most renowned doctors in his city, he was about to embark on a new chapter in his professional life by accepting a position at the luxurious private clinic of Antonio Vasconcelos, an eccentric and demanding businessman. As Gabriel crossed the imposing glass doors of the clinic, his demeanor was clear. He knew what he was doing there and wouldn't let the opulence intimidate him. That confidence, however, hid the natural apprehension of facing a place where expectations were as high as the ornamented ceilings of the reception area. In his first days, Gabriel realized that the routine there wouldn't be like that of an ordinary hospital. Antonio was strict, and his obsession with perfection was reflected in every detail, from the organization of medical records to the temperature of the waiting room. But Gabriel wasn't just any professional. He saw every obstacle as an opportunity to prove that excellence wasn't just a motto. It was his way of life. As they say, great opportunities often come disguised as challenges. And Gabriel, with his impeccable dedication, began to stand out quickly. A clear example of his competence occurred when a VIP patient personally referred by Antonio showed up without an appointment with a complex medical condition. The team was tense, but Gabriel took control of the situation with calm and absolute expertise, diagnosing and stabilizing the patient within minutes. When Antonio heard about the incident, he merely nodded in approval, a rare gesture from someone so demanding. It's a reminder that in high-pressure situations, the ability to stay composed can turn crises into opportunities. Still, not everything was easy for Gabriel. He felt the weight of veiled criticism from some colleagues, especially those who saw his efficiency as a threat. But Gabriel had something that few possess: resilience. Instead of engaging in unnecessary conflicts, he let his results speak for themselves. As the days turned into long, busy nights, something in his posture suggested that he wasn't just there to adapt, he was there to transform. Gabriel wasn't the type to be swayed by appearances. Antonio Vasconcelos, with his firm and almost intimidating demeanor, seemed unshakable. However, one quiet afternoon at the clinic, while reviewing documents in the office, Gabriel came across something unexpected: a divorce file. The pages revealed details of a complicated separation, exposing a side of Antonio that few would have imagined: a human, fragile, and perhaps even lonely side. It was like peeking into a piece of a story that explained the hardness of his employer. At that moment, Gabriel realized that even the harshest individuals hide pains that shape their demeanor. He decided to keep the discovery to himself. After all, ethics weren't just part of his job as a doctor, they were a principle of his life. Gabriel knew that instead of judging, it was better to reflect. This led him to think about how people often build walls around themselves to hide their vulnerabilities. And who hasn't done that? How many times have you pretended to be stronger than you really are, just to avoid letting others see your weaknesses? This reflection gave Gabriel not only a different perspective on Antonio, but also an opportunity to practice empathy. Their relationship began to change subtly. Gabriel, with his natural sensitivity, started to notice the nuances in Antonio's behavior. Moments when he hesitated before giving an order, or when he seemed more lost in thought than focused on work. It's curious how, when you pay attention, even the most closed-off people start to reveal themselves. It's a valuable lesson. Sometimes the best way to help someone is simply to be present, listening with an open heart, even in silence. This discovery also reignited in Gabriel an idea he had always carried, that everyone's stories are composed of good and bad chapters. Antonio's divorce was just one among many chapters, and Gabriel felt motivated to deal with him not just as a boss, but as a person. The other's fragility doesn't diminish their strength. On the contrary, it reminds us that even the toughest individuals have a beating heart. And who knows? Perhaps that was the key to building something more meaningful. Antonio Vasconcelos had a clear idea in mind. Take Gabriel to a business dinner as a strategic move, a facade of elegance to impress the investor José Germano. To Antonio, the renowned doctor was the perfect complement to convey credibility and sophistication, even if he didn't expect much beyond that. But Gabriel wasn't a bystander in someone else's story. He was a natural protagonist, even when no one immediately noticed. Wearing an impeccable suit and with the confident demeanor of someone who mastered his craft, Gabriel entered the dinner ready to surprise. As the conversation around the table unfolded, Gabriel remained silent at first, listening attentively. But it only took a slight pause in the dialogue for him to shine. When José Germano mentioned a philanthropic project related to public health, Gabriel seized the opportunity to share his experience in community healthcare initiatives. He not only impressed with his eloquence, but also proposed innovative ideas that could enhance Germano's efforts. The reaction was immediate. The investor leaned forward, captivated by Gabriel's depth of insight. Antonio, meanwhile, watched in silence, a mixture of surprise and pride crossing his face. The magic of the evening lay in something we often forget: authenticity. Gabriel wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply speaking with passion about what he knew deeply. This teaches us a valuable lesson. When you master a subject and speak from the heart, people notice. It's like walking into a room full of strangers and finding connection simply because you had the courage to show who you really are. And the truth is, everyone has something to offer. The secret lies in finding the right moment to share it. When the dinner ended, José Germano seemed more inclined to close the deal than ever before, but not without making it clear that much of his decision stemmed from the trust Gabriel had earned that night. Antonio, though silent, knew that Gabriel had done something extraordinary. He had turned an ordinary situation into a moment of impact. And as the guests said their goodbyes, one thing became clear. Gabriel's prominence that night was just the beginning of something much greater. Despite the undeniable success of the business dinner, Gabriel quickly realized that not every triumph is celebrated by all. Antonio, who initially seemed proud, began acting distant and even hostile in the days that followed. The reason? A mix of bruised ego and fear of being overshadowed. Gabriel unintentionally had exposed a vulnerability in Antonio. He was no longer the sole center of attention. It's interesting how success can sometimes trigger insecurities in the people we least expect, isn't it? The lesson here is clear. Even when you do your best, not everyone will welcome it. The tension peaked when Antonio, in an impulsive act, decided to fire Gabriel. The formal reason was vague, but the true cause was evident. He felt threatened. Gabriel received the news with a mix of disappointment and relief. He knew the environment was becoming toxic, but he couldn't ignore how much he enjoyed making a difference there. However, life has a funny way of putting the pieces together. Shortly after being dismissed, Gabriel received an unexpected call. It was José Germano. The investor, impressed by his performance at the dinner, wanted to offer something that would change his life. The proposal was ambitious and challenging: to take on a leadership role in a new public health project funded by Germano. It was more than a job offer. It was a chance to transform lives on a large scale. Gabriel, who had always believed in the social impact of his profession, accepted without hesitation. And the most interesting part: the position came with a twist. Germano decided to cut ties with Antonio, stating that he didn't share the same values of innovation and humanity that Gabriel represented. As they say, the world turns, and those who sow integrity reap opportunities. But not everything was a cause for immediate celebration. Gabriel knew that the road ahead would be full of challenges, especially since he was taking on such a significant role. He was leaving a difficult phase only to face an even more demanding one. But he also knew he was prepared. After all, every obstacle he had faced until then had been disguised training. And as he prepared for this new chapter, part of his mind still reflected on Antonio. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the most unexpected people. Taking on a leadership role was something Gabriel had always aspired to, but he knew the journey would be anything but simple. As director of the public health project funded by José Germano, Gabriel found himself facing a skeptical team, composed of professionals who doubted his ability to lead. It was natural. After all, he was a doctor who, until then, had operated on an individual level. Now his responsibility was collective, strategic, and above all, transformative. Gabriel, however, didn't let the initial prejudice shake him. He knew the only way to earn respect was through actions that spoke louder than words. In his first month, Gabriel proposed a bold change, decentralizing medical services, bringing specialists directly to the most vulnerable communities. Some team members criticized the idea, claiming it was risky and unfeasible. But Gabriel didn't back down. He presented data, planned every step, and above all actively participated in the implementation. A touching example was when he personally led the first initiative in an underserved neighborhood, personally treating a child with a rare condition that would have otherwise gone unnoticed. The impact was so significant that even the harshest critics began to change their minds. Meanwhile, Antonio, after his dismissal, faced an internal battle. He went from being an influential businessman to someone struggling to find purpose. Reflections on past mistakes began to invade his thoughts. And here's an interesting point. Sometimes, losing something is the only path to rediscovery. He started getting involved in volunteer work, helping local small businesses recover, an effort that even indirectly would later impact Gabriel and the project he led. Gabriel, meanwhile, continued to face challenges. There were moments of exhaustion, doubt, and extreme pressure. But every obstacle made him grow. He sought the support of Marta, Germano's experienced wife, who became a crucial mentor. It was she who taught him that leadership is not just about commanding, but inspiring. People don't follow ideas, Gabriel. They follow people who believe in them, she once said. With this, Gabriel began to see leadership as something beyond strategies, as a way to touch lives, one at a time, but with a transformative reach. Antonio Vasconcelos never imagined he would one day find himself in the position he was in now. The pride that once guided him seemed to have been replaced by something new: humility. After his dismissal and loss of relevance in the business world, he began to reflect on the mistakes he had made, both in his career and personal life. That divorce, which he had always tried to hide, now seemed more like a symptom of the man he had become. In this context of self-reflection, Antonio decided to take a bold step, to start giving back to society through volunteer work. His first project was at a community center where he helped small entrepreneurs develop their businesses. The work was modest compared to the million-dollar contracts he used to sign, but in some way it fulfilled him in ways luxury never could. He encountered stories of struggle that deeply inspired him, like that of a young mother who turned a small candy shop into a way to support her family. Antonio realized there was more value in the resilience of that woman than in many of the corporate deals he had closed. At the same time, he felt a moral debt that needed to be addressed: his relationship with Gabriel. Antonio knew he had been unfair, and this realization gnawed at him like a pebble in his shoe. When he learned about a critical issue in Gabriel's project, a logistics problem that threatened to halt medical services in several communities, Antonio saw an opportunity to contribute. He used his extensive network of contacts to secure reliable suppliers and expedite deliveries, solving the problem before it escalated into a bigger crisis. It was his way of starting to rebuild the bridge he had burned. Interestingly, The gesture did not go unnoticed by Gabriel. He saw in that action a sign that Antonio was genuinely trying to change. It wasn't just about solving a problem, it was about admitting mistakes and striving to do better. This teaches us something profound. No one is beyond redemption. Whether in work, personal life, or any other aspect, there is always a chance to rewrite your story. And as Antonio continued seeking ways to redeem himself, it became clear that his journey was far from over. Perhaps, in fact, it was just beginning. Gabriel was never one to hold grudges, but he also wasn't the type to forgive easily. He believed forgiveness had to be sincere and, above all, earned. Under Marta's mentorship, Germano's wise wife, he began to understand that being a leader wasn't just about strategies and results, but also about having a heart capable of embracing others' flaws. Marta, with her calm wisdom, once explained something Gabriel would never forget. Forgiving isn't for the one who made the mistake, it's for the one who wants to move forward. These words echoed in his mind as he observed Antonio's attempts to mend their relationship. Gabriel's transformation as a leader went beyond the office walls. He was growing as a person, learning to balance firmness with empathy. During a crucial meeting with his team, he shared for the first time his own story of struggles, showing that behind the renowned doctor was someone who had faced failures and uncertainties. This created a new dynamic with his team, who began to see him not just as a boss but as a human and inspiring leader. It's a lesson many overlook. Vulnerability isn't weakness, but an invitation to connection. Meanwhile, Antonio finally gathered the courage to ask for forgiveness. He didn't look for excuses or try to downplay his mistakes. Instead, he presented his vulnerability in a simple yet powerful gesture. During a conversation, he admitted that he had much to learn from Gabriel and offered his full support to the project if needed. It was a moment of honesty Gabriel didn't expect, but that deeply moved him. Sometimes the simplest words, "I was wrong and I want to do better," carry the weight of 1,000 actions. Over time, Gabriel realized that forgiving Antonio wasn't just an act of kindness, it was a way to free himself. He chose to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect, giving Antonio a consultative role in the project. This decision not only strengthened the team, but also proved that transformation and reconciliation are possible when there is genuine effort. And as both continued their respective journeys, it became clear that life's greatest lessons often come from those who challenge us in ways we never imagined. The story of Gabriel and Antonio is, above all, proof that life is a constant school of learning and transformation. Both began their journeys in very different places, one seeking to make a difference in medicine, the other trapped in his bubble of power and control. However, the challenges and choices they faced along the way shaped them in ways they could never have predicted. As they say, life has a unique way of teaching us the lessons we need most, even if it means pushing us out of our comfort zones. Gabriel became more than a renowned doctor. He transformed into a leader capable of inspiring, innovating, and building genuine connections. He learned that leadership isn't just about strategy, but about service and bringing out the best in those around him. His growth didn't come without pain or effort, but that's precisely what makes his journey so powerful. When you commit to growing, you have to be willing to face discomfort. Gabriel faced it head-on, and in the process became a version of himself he might not have even imagined was possible. Antonio, on the other hand, had to lose to find himself. His journey was a reminder that power without purpose holds no real value. By letting go of control and embracing humility, he discovered a new way of making an impact, by helping, serving, and connecting in genuine ways. The turnaround in his life wasn't a stroke of luck, but the result of deliberate and difficult decisions. This teaches us something important. Transformation isn't a single event, but a series of daily choices to be better than we were yesterday. In the end, what remained from this story wasn't just Gabriel's rise or Antonio's redemption, but the impact they left on the people around them. They showed that we are all works in progress and that the power of forgiveness and resilience can change not only our lives but also the lives of those who walk alongside us. And while they each continued on their separate paths, there was a mutual respect that would forever link them, a reminder that life's greatest treasures lie in transformation and the legacy we leave for others. So, tell me, How have you been approaching the opportunities that arise in your life? Maybe you're wondering if you too could turn challenges into great turning points, just like the characters in this story did. The truth is, we all have the power to change, whether it's by acknowledging our mistakes like Antonio or by courageously facing new challenges like Gabriel. What's holding you back from taking the next step? What's stopping you from starting right now to rewrite your own story? Think about this. Each day is a new chance to transform your reality. How about starting today? Maybe it's time to invest in your dreams, rekindle lost connections, or even forgive yourself for something in the past. Small actions can lead to great impacts. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Just as Gabriel relied on mentors, you too can seek inspiration, guidance, and support. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep learning valuable lessons like these, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you'll be alerted whenever we publish something new. Here you'll always find stories that touch the heart and bring deep reflections. Let's build a better future together, full of purpose and inspiration. See you next time.